really appreciate that. Okay, so I am gonna go back into the full screen. There we go. And close this. Okay, so um, I'm just going to review just a little bit here for the recording. Thankfully, Maura reminded me to record it, and we just looked over what we'll cover today, which I will share that again. Yes, I need all the help I can get. Okay, so for those of you who are listening to the recording, we're going to cover today Pluto trine Uranus, Saturn entering Aries on May 24th, the Saturn-Neptune conjunction coming up, the Aries vortex formation, and all of this forms one formation, and then looking at the Jupiter-Saturn waxing square. Last time it's going to be square. It started last year. We'll touch on the full moon and new moon and then work with seeing what's going on for the USA. So I was pointing out how here's the beginning of the Aries vortex. What it is, it's this triangle here with the green uh, foundation line, and then the midpoint is Saturn, Neptune. So Pluto trine Uranus, it's also bringing in Sedna. There's the Jupiter square Saturn. So for those of you who know astrology, it's nice to see it, but you don't have to know about astrology today to get what the energy's been doing. We started talking about Pluto retrograde. It went retrograde May 4th. When a planet goes retrograde, especially a slow-moving outer planet like Pluto, um, it intensifies its expression. So it's worthwhile for you to look at where Pluto's transiting in your chart, and that's at 3 degrees Aquarius. So any in the beginning of Aquarius, you want to look at where that is in your chart and what house it's in. Because when Pluto transits, that's where we're allowing something to be let go, something, as we would say with Pluto, to die so that we can move on and something new can come in. Um, and it's not causing it, but it's reminding you that this is the natural unfoldment. It's time to let go of something. So you can take a look at your own chart and see where that's happening. Now, here's my chart, just as an example. So here's Pluto at 3 degrees Aquarius, and it's in my 10th house. You can see it's conjunct my midheaven, my point of public standing. So how I would interpret that is that there's something in my career or how I present myself in the public that's changing. Something old maybe is coming up to the surface, and there's the need for me to know or to feel into what needs to be let go of. So I've definitely been thinking about that. Here you can see the Saturn-Neptune conjunction, which on May 24th, Saturn will move into Aries. This is in my 11th house. The 11th house is my interface with community. So it could say there's some new beginning for me uh, in the area of community. And then I have Uranus on my transiting Uranus on my ascendant to my Venus. So somehow there's the possibility that the way I come out in the world, the way I present myself, what I'm interested in, what I do, what I take up will be different. It'll initiate a change. So just a little information for those of you who like to work with your chart. For those of you who don't look at charts that much, this inner wheel, that's my natal chart. And the outer wheel is the transits, literally where the planets are right now. This is the upcoming full moon. and it's known as the Wesak moon. It's the celebration of Buddha's enlightenment. And I always like to think about this in terms of it's the one full moon in Scorpio that carries that broad range of feeling and this intensity of feeling and working with what needs to be transformed within us, the thought patterns or the emotional qualities that might be maybe pull us into deeper places that are challenging. Something needs to be let go. And the sun's in Taurus, which is like be in the present, see the beauty of things. And if you saw the newsletter, I put in that imagery of Buddha because as he was going through the challenge of, maybe I'll call them demons, attacking him and tempting him, he put his hand down on Mother Earth to call her in as a witness to what he was going through and to support his steadiness. And so that's like the Taurus energy. But here we see the sun is next to Uranus and the moon is opposed Uranus, meaning we're in this very tumultuous change time, uncertainty, and we feel it collectively, but also it may be that something's really needing to change within ourselves, um, and to lean into the change as much as possible, to get support. Like, what could this mean for me that wants to bring me into something new? And here you can see um, the Aries vortex or minor grand trine starting to form. So this is Pluto, the god of the underworld, with Uranus, which is a Promethean figure, the sky god, wanting to bring some broader perspective, new way of seeing into the world, where Pluto's bringing up what's been hidden or what's been repressed and showing it, and showing what's toxic, and maybe even some of the beauty of what has been and we've forgotten. So this Uranus trine Pluto that we're in is this compelling drive for change and transformation. Now, just a little bit of history to this. Astrologers look at cycles, and this cycle, I'm going to forget how long it is, but I could guess, or someone could look it up for me, but let's just say 140 years. Could be wrong on that for sure. But it started in the mid 60s. So the mid 60s were a seeding of liberation, freedom, new ways of viewing who we are, our relation to the earth. And then I think, 2010 through, maybe that's a little early, 2016, 2017, 2018, it was a square. So there was a lot of tension. I'm probably a little bit wrong on that. Maybe it went into COVID a bit, where we're trying to come to terms with, okay, all this old stuff is coming up, the old way of being, and we're trying to see a vision for the new, and it's very challenging at the square. But now we're in the trine, and so the trine means Uranus and Pluto are 120 degrees apart, which has a harmonious energy flow between one planet and the other planet. So it's like, whew, this is into the rapids. This is the compelling drive for change and transformation. And the way that the wonderful astrologer Richard Tarnas says, it's a widespread, radical social and political changes, often destructive upheaval, empowerment of revolutionary and rebellious impacts, restless experimentation, freedom, revolt against oppression, embracing of radical political ideology, moving rapidly to new horizons, highly charged character of massive change and revolution, innovation, and upheaval. Wow, that's a lot. We can feel that. But you know what it's doing also at this time is it's bringing up for us to see what is it that's been repressed and working below and now is up. So we can see what values are up in terms of the collective that might have been repressed or hidden or wasn't allowed. But now we're seeing both the positive values and the ones that are contractive and oppressive. So let's go on here. Um, so here's the exactly what we're talking about. And I want you to see that this glyph, this symbol is Sedna. And Sedna was discovered, I believe it was 2008, but really came into the astrological community for research 2015. And she represents the strong feminine that was, and I'm going to simplify it greatly, that was betrayed by the father energy, or we could say the patriarchal energy. And she was thrown out of the safety of the boat, and her father was having a panic attack basically and wanted to save himself. So he cut off her fingers and she fell to the bottom of the sea. And as she was letting go and falling to the bottom of sea, this new destiny arrived where she became the goddess of all the sea creatures and the seas and the quality of um, well-being of the seas and the deep feminine. So what is interesting to me about the mythic and the astronomical Sedna, which gives her her qualities, is that she's the farthest out small planet that we've discovered in our solar system. It takes her 11,000 years to go around the sun. So for astrologers, we look at that kind of in a poetic way to see what archetype is trying to awaken in the collective. And this is like stretching our consciousness out farther and farther, taking in more, all the way back, you know, to the origins of things, but also now she's closest to the sun. And the mythology was chosen by the astronomers, not the astrologers, because she was way out there and very cold. So they took this Alaskan Inuit mythology of Sedna, and she's the goddess of the deep. So again, the collective is ready to see the feminine that's been in the deep, that holds the deep, that cares for creatures and the waters and the earth. And and this theme of betrayal or abandonment as well. So that's Sedna. So what values will the USA enact during this rapid change phase? So let's go on here. So, you know, this may chart be, I thought about redoing it, thinking, well, maybe it's too complicated, but I'm just going to show you a few things that might indicate what's going on in the United States briefly, and we'll come back to the United States later in today's talk. But this inner circle is the USA chart. And here's Pluto in the second house of our values, our self-worth, how we handle money, what are our talents to bring forth. And so we're at our first Pluto return, as many of you know, because we've talked about it a lot over the last couple years. And this Pluto return is saying we're ending one great cycle of 250 years and we're moving into another. And during this time, we have to work with what values are going to bring us forward. And so up in our faces in the United States are these values of the Christian nationalists going to bring ourselves forward? Are these values of inclusiveness going to bring us forward? Are these values of financial accountability going to bring us forward, and on and on. You can name all those values. We're working with it. There's this churning going on to see what values are going to bring us forward. Um, and you can see here, this is where the Saturn-Neptune conjunction is going to happen right on the USA, what we call the nadir. This is the separation between the third and fourth house, which is the roots, our inner foundation. So there's something wanting to take hold from a deep, deep level, a clear level. We want to clarify it with Saturn there and be pioneering and be start a new cycle and build a new foundation for ourselves. So there's this disruption and this taking apart and falling apart of the old systems in order to build something new. But what is it? And so this is going to be going on for a couple years. Saturn will move on, but Neptune, the Aries vortex, will stay there. And also this last wheel is the USA progressions, which is the symbolic unfoldment of growth. We think of progressions, we think of the natal chart as like an acorn or a seed. And we think of the progressions as the unfoldment of that seed or acorn into a tree. And so you can see the progressed sun is in Pisces for the USA, and the progressed moon just went into Aries for the USA about 6 months ago. We think of the transits as the weather that affects this tree. So that's the basic layout for how an astrologer will look at what's going on in your life at this time. Okay, I pulled this up. Maybe some of you saw this image. It's from New York Times, and it's from an editorial here by Jessica Gross, and it's titled MAGA Women Leaders, or MAGA Beauty Built to Go Viral. And I was wondering, is this bringing up some of the Sedna themes about the betrayal of the feminine and coming into a deeper place of what it is to have those values? I wish there was another word for feminine. We could say yin sustainability values from the inside, this inclusiveness, this receptive, this in-depth kind of understanding. But this article goes into that there's a certain type of MAGA woman in the administration, and it's like a throwback kind of to the 50s, maybe. And we're looking at, these are the values. These are some of the values that are up right now. And she talks about how they look with high heels, lots of makeup, thick eyebrows, eyeliner, bold lips, form-fitting clothes, giant crosses, she calls it hyper feminine, but then in contrast to often blunt and brutal language that they use. So I think you probably are aware of some of this. And I was thinking about how it's so interesting because Venus has been going back and forth between Pisces and Aries. Pisces would be this maybe the spiritual or the religious, the inclusive, and Aries is more masculine, the warrior. It can be blunt and it can be sharp and even cruel, self-centered, but it can also be courageous and taking a stand. And I was wondering how this might be reflected by this Venus going back and forth in Pisces and Aries, as well as the values that are being shown to us through the administration. So Venus entered Pisces January 2nd. It entered the area where it'll go retrograde January 28th. And then it left that area May 15th. And it finally leaves Aries on June 5th. So that's a very long time to have Venus in these two signs. Usually it just moves through a sign in a month. But not only, as you can see, not only is Venus in Aries and then back into Pisces, but we have Neptune and Saturn moving back and forth between Aries and Pisces. And we have Mercury was in Pisces and it's in Aries. And so there's this theme of Pisces, the last sign of the zodiac. What needs completing? What are we seeing in the collective? Uh, what is our relation to the spiritual, to the religious? There's now a new pope, very much Pisces to Aries, a new era being started. Um, and we could also look at this strong inclusiveness as some of the yin sustainability possibility, but then the assertive, bold, kind of in your face, or the strength needed to start a new cycle. So I found it very interesting that this has been going on. It'll go on all year, not with Venus, but with Saturn and Neptune as they go into Aries, back into Pisces. So really like a liminal space we're in, kind of the uncertain, unformed yet, it's kind of like you're thinking about your intention or the vision and you're feeling these urges inside you, this is really what I want, but maybe you're hesitating, or maybe you feel this is calling me, but I'm not sure. And yet this new beginning, this change is wanting to take place. Okay. Right. Let's see. I wonder if there's any questions right now. Does anybody have a question they want to ask?
I do, Sue.
Yeah, who is this?
This is Susan Morin.
Hi, Susan.
So on the was my question. So as far as the transits right now, and that I can't put to words what I want to ask you.
You
Like
want,
like
you want
like what you've been expressing, how long is that period? As far as where we're experiencing, we're wanting to create some change and we're feeling it and we're not quite sure. But just before that, there's the empowerment of that there's a lot of clarity and a lot of pull for transformation. How long is that period?
well, it's really strong through next year. And then this Aries vortex with Uranus, Pluto, and Neptune goes on, continues, I think maybe through 2028, 29. I have that date someplace around here. So that's to answer your question there. Any other questions?
Perfect, thanks.
You're welcome. Okay, so Neptune, the god of spirituality, imagination, collective feeling. I always think of Neptune as a pretty high vibration if we can get into that higher vibration, but it's difficult because it's very refined. It's dealing with our emotional body, our heart, and there's on the lower levels, it's um, illusion, delusion, escapism, going into altered states. But on those higher levels, it's the world behind the world where everything's interconnected. And it's moving out of Pisces, which it's been in 10 to 12 years, which was really tapping into the collective where we're all really feeling what's going on here. And then now it's moving into Aries. So it's already in Aries. It will go back into Pisces. But the Aries is almost like some kind of spiritual warrior coming forward, or a bold new vision that's inclusive, or it can be kind of the wearing away of the the traditional masculine image, or it could bring up, you know, issues with how men or boys relate to the masculine as well, to be re-envisioned. Um, and I wanted to, I think this is a good time to read it. This is a quote out of the Light Eaters book that I was telling you about by naturalist Alexander von Humboldt. And the quote is, "Nature everywhere speaks to man in a voice that is familiar to his soul. Everything is interaction and reciprocal, and therefore nature gives the impression of the whole." And I think as we go into this Aries vortex, the great change that's trying to happen, we're also witnessing radical new ways of understanding, of, of, of understanding this world. So, you know, on the loud section, we really get a lot of what's going on in the government, but underneath that, and even it seems being somewhat repressed or not supported, there's these radical new ways of observing the world that we live in. And that's also ushering in this new age. Okay, so Saturn will go into Aries on May 24th. And I know we think of Saturn as, uh-oh, here comes Saturn in my sign, and what's going to happen, you know, because one of the ways you can work with this is to look at what was going on for you in 1996, 1998, the last time that Saturn went into Aries, 1996 to 1998. The astrologer Jessica Murray, who, if you don't know who she is, check her out. I love the way she writes. She says, for the next 2.5 years with Saturn in Aries, the planet of cohesion, she calls Saturn the planet of cohesion, bringing things together, because of focus. You know, it's going to limit. Okay, you can think of it as my intention for this next period. I'm going to focus on it, which limits my view. I want to slow down. Always with Saturn, there's a slowing because it wants to go inward, go deeper to get to the essence. And then it builds structure. It also rules laws and authority, but that deepest aspect of the self. So she says the planet of cohesion will push its agenda in the sign of fiery leadership. And then she writes, old style machismo will come under scrutiny. Ways of expressing aggression will be blocked, ideally to be replaced by more mature approaches. I like the way she says that. Uh, if you have planets in Aries, you want to think about this is the right time to slow or to be very mindful, because it's an opportunity to see the forming patterns deeper in your psyche that you're ready to let go of to build something new. So it's a time for redefining goals and working with what is the next stage for me. Now, Saturn and Aries, they're very uncomfortable together. We say Saturn's in its detriment. It's in its fall. It's in its fall in Aries, meaning that Saturn wants to be logical, structured, organized in order to build something. It has a lot of maturity, that it takes time to do it. And Aries is the newborn, the young, and spring and sprouting from intuition and impulse, and has this ability and force, like the little plant breaking through the cement in the driveway. And the two have come together where Saturn kind of wants to discipline this impulsiveness, wants to give it more of a defined form. So it's very interesting that this is happening now with what's going on in our country because it's going to slow this down. Let's scrutinize what's going on, restructuring identity and leadership, um, channeling this energy into sustainable goals, developing courage that's grounded and practical, and it will challenge military action. Now, the way I was thinking of this is if you were to imagine this older, wise teacher entering the room, very matter of fact, not touchy-feely, very matter of fact, non-emotional, even a bit stern, but certainly serious. And you might even feel a little intimidated or afraid of this teacher, but his or her job is to teach the students to focus on a particular topic, to mature into deeper understanding and to understand the layers of patterns and conditioning that has created their particular moment in time in their life journey. So think about now, this Saturn is going from 26 Pisces to 1 degree Aries this year. Next year, it'll go from 1 Aries to 14 Aries. So it's a good time to think about this. If you have any planets in Aries or Libra, it would be opposing, or in Cancer at those beginning degrees, or Capricorn, be squaring them. So the teacher's aim is to both show you what's in the way of your soul's journey and to give form to what you're wanting to manifest. And ultimately, this teacher wants to strip away the non-authentic layers of identity and get to deeper layers of soul expression. It can feel like this Saturn's like whacking you on the head like a Zen teacher, um, or that it can stop you with some kind of obstacle. So you pursue deeper levels of understanding yourself. So there's this taming, slowing of this energy in order to really see what's the impulse right now? How can I bring more awareness to this impulse? And is this impulse an old conditioning? Um, but because it's in Aries, it's the beginning of a new cycle. And so we're looking at not only is Saturn in Aries, but Neptune. So it's a Saturn Neptune conjunction. And in the Saturn Neptune conjunction, we have a dissolving of the old form in order to give form to a new vision. And this will go on for about 9 months. Now, the Saturn Neptune conjunction happens once every 36 years, but the last time in Aries, as I said, I'm not sure if this is right. It says 660 BC, but I'm wondering if it's AD. But the most recent conjunction was 1988, 89, 90. And you'll know a good example of that is the Berlin Wall came down. So it's a time period where the structures we've known are dissolving, the systems are dissolving, are being taken apart because there's this process going on. It's not just this month, it's not just next month, it's this longer period of time, about a year, giving form to new values and ideas, ideals. And it's interesting that there's this new Pope who's carrying on the tradition of Pope Francis, who's more inclusive, but with this conjunction happening, there's a certain amount of boldness trying to come in, but also Saturn will check the illusions, the spin, the propaganda. It wants to get to the essence of things. It's going to confront so we can see, okay, what's true, which it's challenging to do. Fact checking, bringing clarity to what was unclear or overwhelming as well. Um, so I have a description here of what was happening at the last Saturn-Neptune conjunction, the fall of the Berlin Wall. There was the Tiananmen Square protests, Eastern Europe's revolutions, countries like Poland, Hungary, East Germany, Czechoslovakia, Romania saw the collapse of communist regimes. World Wide Web was proposed. And so we see these ideologies that are coming up. Some are falling, they're transforming. There's a global restructuring of governments and economies. There can be disillusionment followed by rebuilding. And obviously, we're in that phase. Now, what stands out is it's not only in Aries, which says there's this new beginning, but it's it's also happening in the Aries vortex, which gives it this tremendous energy for transformation. So let's see. So this is May 25th, 2025, when Saturn goes into Aries, and you can see this Aries vortex. So just imagine, I think of that Uranus trine Pluto as this stream of energy flowing that's carrying along debris and things from the past that need to be seen, that need to come to the surface so we can see what needs to be changed. There's the vision of this change trying to happen. I mean, I think of it too, like thinking about, whoa, what are we in now in our government? Is it a kleptocracy? What is a kleptocracy? I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Kleptocracy is a form of government in which rulers exploit national resources and steal, literally or through corruption, for personal gain. So it's talking about a lack of accountability for what's going on with those in charge around wealth, and a weak rule of law. And the power is concentrated among a small elite who use state mechanisms to enrich themselves. It's often paired with authoritarian media censorship and weakening civil institutions where the checks and balances are ineffectual. Now, this is like bringing up, this value of wealth in our country and what being wealthy means. And it's juxtaposed with all the cuts to the poor people, and the tariffs being raised. So it's interesting because we get to see this value. We're seeing all these values. Now, on the other hand, we could think about RFK Jr. in terms of his work in what is it, the Health and Human Services, where he's bringing up food dyes and the putting sugar into food products and bringing up our awareness there. And it's good because Michelle Obama brought up those things, but there was reaction to it. Now the Republican side is bringing it up. And these are things, looking at the food industry is important. Of course, he's working with what's really happening with vaccines, but it's good to see, okay, let's just get it out into the open. So everything is about bringing this out into the open at this time. And the challenge for us is how we can stand up for what's really valuable to us. It's because we're trying to
We
reach.
lost the sound.
Pardon? What's that?
We lost your sound.
You can't hear me? Can you hear me?
I can. No
I
problem.
can.
Yeah,
I
Okay.
can. I can hear you too.
no
Okay.
problem.
Maybe Cat lost my sound. Okay. hopefully, Kat, you can
Can't hear you.
somebody write to Kat in the chat that it's her sound and maybe she needs to turn her volume up. Thank you, whoever will do that. I appreciate it. I'm assuming you all can hear me except Kat. Am I correct? Hello?
Still can't hear you.
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, we're good.
We can
Okay.
hear
We're
you.
good.
Okay, so I'm assuming somebody's going to write to Kat. Just put Kat, it sounds like it's on your end. Okay, the Aries vortex. Big deal. Never happened before in Aries like this formation. Through March, oh, there you go. Through March 6th, that's 2026, through March 2026, and then through 2030 without Saturn. So, Susan, that's the answer to your question. It's being looked at as okay, there's this huge shift in how we hold our views on this world and these systems and structures and it's bringing in a new age and what's going to define it. There's awakening and shifts in world views, and now we're in it. We're in this collapse of structures and the rebirthing. What's going to come forward? We're battling that out. We're working with it. It's exposing the collective shadow of our systems for more conscious collective creation and advances in technology. Think about what AI is doing. I mean, I heard Ray Merriman say, well, for astrologers, it's not about giving the reading on the meaning of the aspects in the chart. It's about being able to be more of a coach because the AI will just tell you what your chart means. There's new emerging ethical frameworks that can serve the collective. But we're really looking at what visionary and idealistic possibilities that can move into practical working form and structure. So we're at this great turning point, and it's hard to be in this liminal space where it feels like everything's falling apart. It's not, maybe not, we're not feeling like our values are being upheld, but it's this going down to rebirth. It's a collective crisis, a turning point. And we can feel it in our own lives too. What's needing to transform in our own lives. And some people feel in a really big way, some people feel it in a smaller way. But it's so helpful to remember, okay, what is wanting to be transformed in my life? Now's the time. And here's a little visual picture of what it looks like. I like to pose the question, what might be Sedna's role in this? In what way can we embrace the deeper feminine? Okay, what is the deeper feminine? Yin sustainability, like how do we take care of ourselves, nurture ourselves? What's created internally that can come outward and embrace inclusiveness? We're all in this together. The intuitive that connects with the cosmic. So here's the new moon of May, the end of the month. And you can see this new moon at 6 Gemini is aligning with this minor grand trine. So this energy is definitely becoming stronger and coming into being at this time. Okay, so shifting gears slightly. This is the other important transit that's happening, and that's Jupiter squaring Saturn. And this is the last exact square out of 3 squares that began last year. So this is June 15th. So we're coming upon that last square. And you can see how it fits into the Aries vortex. It's very interesting. Now, when you think of this Saturn-Jupiter square, it's almost like a different chapter in the book. You know, the first chapter we've been working with, well, maybe more than the first chapter we've been working with Saturn into Aries, Neptune into Aries, and then the Neptune-Aries conjunction. Some new beginning that's calling forth courage to take a stand and to face certain things and to slow down and to channel this creative energy of new beginnings. And then the second chapter, or these could be reversed as well, is Pluto trining Uranus, this quick moving upheaval change in order to bring about something new as it channels through third chapter Aries vortex, as it channels through Saturn Neptune. So what was Neptunian may be very visionary or ideal, or there's lots of spin or propaganda. Now Saturn's going, okay, what's real here? Let's get down. What's the structure? Is this something that's just an illusion? What's real here? And let's give it a structural form then. And then, so that's maybe 3 chapters. And then the fourth chapter would be, we're also at the Saturn square Jupiter. This cycle started at the end of 2020, saying that in fact, it was called the Great Mutation because it began a new 200-year cycle of Jupiter and Saturn conjuncting in the air signs. So some astrologers called it the new era, bringing in more learning, more air qualities, social interaction, technology, but also how we connect with each other, how we build community. And so it's developed to this level now where they're squaring each other. And at the waxing square, so this is the first square in the cycle, the second square would be over there. It's a decisive point. Again, another indication of some clear decisions that are needing to be made. So the waxing square is crisis in action. So we've been in this. We're coming to the end of it. We're looking like June, July. Well, we're in it now. So some definite, decisive awareness must enter to bring clarity and decisions that can meet the crisis and create a turn in the unfolding events. So what's been growing meets a limiting force right now. What's been happening meets a limiting force in order for the collective to seriously choose its future. We can feel that happening in the collective, just all the court situations that are going on, everything that's been challenged in the courts or what the administration's trying to do, that's the limiting force. Like, what is the law? What is the structure we're going to do? We've got to slow down because it's happening so fast. But this is saying slow down, so we can build this new cycle in consciousness as much as we're capable in terms of the collective. And there's August, December, and June. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to stop for a minute and see if there's any questions.
Sue, I have a question about this Jupiter square happening on June 15th, right? After Trump's birthday, which
Yeah.
he's going to have a big parade and all that.
Is he still planning to have that big parade?
I don't know, but I just find it interesting, the timing.
Yes.
I don't know if you want to share anything about your ideas around that.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, one thing that's happening right now, and we can get into it, when I bring up Trump's chart, if you guys want to see it, is that Jupiter's on his sun. That would happen once in 12 years. That's like feeling very good, confident, kind of, it can be inflation, it can be protection. And his sun at 22 Gemini is at the same degree or within a degree of the USA Mars. So he triggers, his whole being triggers the masculine in the USA and the military, and then on top of it he has Mars in Leo conjunct Leo rising, and that's being triggered by transit as well. So he's very identified with that, and I think what he does is he brings out these values that we've kind of we built the country on in certain ways, and we've maybe prided ourselves on not seeing some of those values, so they're in the Plutonian underworld. Well, he's brought it out. Is that answering your question?
Yes, I thought there'd be something kind of, I mean, I find it just interesting that this final square, the timing of it on his birthday and all that. So,
Yeah.
and the impact that's going to have for our country.
Well, I think we're in this, massive challenge to bring awareness and to make decisions about who we are right now. Who are we going forward? And he's showing he's showing his version, because he's remaking, the United States government in his image, or maybe we could say he's enacting the 2025 version of the Christian nationalists, of what they're giving form to, and many of them feel, not all of them, but many of them feel that they've been repressed, and you can feel that, but I think the politics is also using that. They have a partnership to get power. And it's interesting to watch. I can say that now, but I don't always feel it's interesting. It's more than interesting. It's kind of scary in a lot of ways of what we're becoming. But because I know the astrology, I feel like we're not even in the middle of this yet. We're like at the beginning of this reshaping going on. So that's my way of looking at it. Is there anybody else who wants to make a comment or question? Is someone talking? No. Okay.
I was hoping we were further along.
Oh, I think it's good we're not further along, if it looks like this right now.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
But the other,
it's
I thought the other vision was coming more empowered,
no,
in
what are you saying? Say it again, Penny.
that with all the, maybe I'm seeing all the protesting and whatnot, uh, pushing more for that other image of what we're really about.
Yes. But I think there's something that's trying to go beyond polarity. There's something where we're trying to see,
Interesting.
what's going on in this country that, has put us in this position, and we're re-evaluating certain values that we've had or that have been hidden, values that have kind of been hidden that we've stood behind, like a certain feminine beauty. This is what it should look like. Or wealth, our relationship to wealth, or the value of let's just, really rape the earth and take all the profit out of it as much as possible, which was very related to the last Jupiter Saturn major cycle in the earth signs. It's like we're having a chance. Is how do we support people that are less well off economically without harming the earth? How can we value that? So there's a lot of things going on, a big list. I'm sure everybody in this group would have another thing to bring up, like looking at this or looking at that. I do find it very interesting that there's a new pope right now, that this is the time that Pope Francis would let go and transition, and that this new pope has come in who holds those values that St. Francis had, kind of in a counterbalance to some of our administration's values. But this new pope is also American. And so it's very interesting. It's like that Saturn-Neptune conjunction, Neptune being the spiritual, Saturn being the authority or the government. And how do we work with that? On a personal level, how do we work with Saturn-Neptune conjunction? And so it's really worthwhile during this time to take space for ourselves, to feel into, like, where are we? Like, not hurry along so fast, but where am I? What is my vision or my dream right now? Am I just going to set it aside, or am I going to embrace it and give it form in some way? Okay, any other questions or comments? I'm going to go on. Okay. I sure hope Kat can hear now. Does anybody know? Kat, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear. It was
Oh.
my fault. I'm sorry.
That's okay. You never know. I mean, it's good to bring those things up, just like Maura did. Okay, the United States astrology. So we've been working with this quite a bit. You all know the USA is going through the Pluto return, which is the first time it's happened since the beginning of our country. And it's about what are our values that are going to form this country. And then in this 3-year period, not only do we have a Pluto return, a Chiron return, and a Uranus return, all happening at the same time, making it a period of transformation and upheaval. So, our natal Chiron in the USA chart is in Aries, and it's addressing the wounded masculine and healing and rebalancing between the yin and the yang, or the masculine feminine. I'd really like some new words for that. Tending to the healing at the root of the country. That's really important. That's 2023 through 2028. It's interesting because 2028 is a new president. So what are returns? Why am I bringing up, oh, it's a return? It's a new beginning. It's a new chapter in the theme of Pluto in the USA chart, of Chiron in the USA chart, of Uranus, upheaval, transformation, breaking through, innovation. It's a new chapter. So then we have also the Jupiter-Saturn square is going to test the growth, and I'll show you where it's happening in the USA chart in the Aries vortex. And we'll go ahead and look at that. The other big thing, which I could say to you if you don't know astrology, boy, every 29 years, the United States goes through this birthing, and we're in that right now. So not only are we having the transits which are saying, whoa, we're going through this massive transformation, dissolution, taking things apart to birth things anew. We're also in a whole different astrological system, not related to that, paralleling it, saying that we're in this new birth. And what is that? That's our progression. So the USA progressed moon to sun, we're in that new moon phase. And interestingly enough, it's bringing up those same Pisces, Aries themes. So the new moon happened in Pisces, but now the progressed moon is in Aries for the next 2 years. So this liminal space, at a progressed new moon, we can't see where we're going exactly. We can't yet feel it. It's still forming. It's like a seed that's starting to break through that shell, but it hasn't yet broken through the soil. So we can see it. It's in the dark. That's why it's the new moon. It's in the dark, but it's happening. A new phase is happening. And now the progressed moon is in Aries, which is also down at the foundation. So everything is saying, like, it's the foundation we're rebuilding. Okay, so this is interesting. Last year and then through this year, I think even into 2026, I could be wrong, but we'll find out. Transiting Uranus is squaring the USA moon. The moon in the USA chart is the people. And this is saying, oh, there's turmoil, there's revolution, there's radical change being called for, there's upheaval, there's unexpected crisis happening right now, and the people are feeling it. This is today, or this is May 7th chart, but here going back to somebody's question, I don't know if it was Susan or not, there's Jupiter at 22 Gemini on the USA Mars. Maybe that was Julie's question. Yeah, Julie's. It's so once in 12 years, transiting Jupiter's on the USA Mars, and it's making it bigger. Like there can be more assertion, there can be a military parade. And the interesting thing about this is Trump's sun is right here at 22 Gemini. And so this is his desire. He's activating that in our lives. He's activating the masculine in a big way. And we can reflect on that. Like when we think about, what was that movement that happened where a lot of young men got behind him, and what's happening to young men. And wow, there's that, ultra feminine. I don't like using that word, but ultra feminine that's carrying this almost cruel masculine way of expressing. Something's been brought out in a big way. And so let's go on here. So here's the Aries vortex. This is August. And you can see here why I chose August of this year is because Uranus will be in Gemini then. And you can really see this very tight alignment here. Now, what's significant to me is that this conjunction of Saturn and Neptune, which is like funneling that tremendous revolutionary breakdown, breakthrough energy of Pluto trine Uranus, it's funneling it through the Saturn-Neptune conjunction, the ideals, what's possible, spirituality, visionary. Okay, what's real? Let's make it real. Let's give it a form. Let's give it a structure. Let's fact check. Let's look at it in a very grounded kind of way. And it's happening right at the USA nadir. And this point in the USA chart is the foundation of our country. This is the deep self. of the country right here. When you have transits to the fourth house, it's like you're going through what's going to be my foundation at this time through what shall grow. And you can see a transiting Chiron, the wounded healer in Aries, something about the wounding that we've carried in this aggressive, assertive, competitive sign. It's squaring Pluto at this time. So going back into the past to look at what needs healing. How do we want to participate with that? Okay, and what's going to be happening is during this time, which is very interesting, Jupiter is going to be, as you saw, it was on Mars. It's going to be on our Venus, our Jupiter, our Sun. So it's giving a certain amount of protection, a certain amount of growth, support. At the same time, we're going through these challenges. So here's June 15th. This is the Saturn square Jupiter. So you see Jupiter, the transit of Jupiter squaring Saturn at 1 Aries, 1 Cancer. And what's going to be happening is Saturn Neptune is going to square the USA Venus. So could be saying something about the economy, like it's not totally clear what's happening. Maybe there's a slowdown that's happening. Saturn square Venus. Also, diplomatic relations. There's something trying to be worked out. Maybe there's obstacles to it. It's not moving really easily forward. And then, but there is the protection, there's the growth and support of this Jupiter at the same time. We're working things out. We're working things out. We're making decisions. You can feel that going on. So this is February 2026. This is the last Uranus square the moon. So thinking about, people standing up for what they believe in, activism, going through the beginning of next year. At least, it's going to go on longer, but this is really strong. People taking a stand. I think this is the last picture I'm going to show you, which is significant. Transit. Because now this is June 2026, and it'll go on for about 9 months. So it takes us into the midterms as well. This is very significant transit for the United States. As you can see, Saturn's going to square the USA Sun and oppose the USA Saturn. So what does that mean? Well, when Saturn opposes the natal Saturn, then we're looking at, it's a checkpoint to the structures we've built in all areas. There's a test here. Is this working? Is this not working? We're getting obstacles, whatever we've been building out there. It's coming to this test point. And it can feel like these external pressures are confronting whatever's been built up to go out into the world. So this is Saturn in the house of our public standing. So it's forcing us to slow down and evaluate past decisions and redefine things and possibly let go of some of the ways that we've been doing things. It's about restructuring what no longer supports our growth. So it's a big checkpoint. And then the transiting Saturn squaring the USA Sun. So this is our identity. This is the United States identity. And it's saying, okay, we're getting slowed down right now to look at and evaluate and come to terms in really grounded ways. Who are we now in regards to ourselves in the country, in regards to other people in other countries? And we could feel blocked. This is also both interesting. Both the sun and Saturn represent in a country's chart the head of the government. The sun can be the head of the government, but just as well can Saturn as the authority. So it can feel like it's a judgment time around what kind of job is being done. There can be fatigue, self-doubt going on. And it's another indicator of forcing our country to clarify our goals, to act with integrity and come to terms with our self-worth. So it's asking us to mature. Whatever was started, we got to look at it straight. We have to face it straight on and take accountability, because there's this restructuring being asked of us in regards to how we as a country express ourselves and our responsibilities. So I'm sure you can hear what I'm saying about the trajectory of what's taking place in the United States. Let me see. Okay, there's Donald Trump's chart. Are there any questions or comments that you all want to make on any of that material? Okay. How are you all doing? Are you with me? Somebody can unmute themselves and let me know. How are you doing?
Well, I'll speak up. This is Leslie. Wow, it's a lot. That's all I can say is it's a lot. But I would love, this is my wish, to collectively, or maybe collectively in this group, really come up with the new terminology or the new envisioning of the feminine and the masculine.
Yeah. Why doesn't everybody, they can email me if they have ideas about that.
I would love that.
Yeah, why don't we do that? So, if I was to summarize a bit, I would say, we are in the rapids now, and these rapids have brought about a destabilization in our country and has brought about what has been hidden, what has been below the surface, out in the forefront. And, we've seen the rapid destructuring going on, just what Doge has been doing. That's totally Uranus trine Pluto. And we're coming into a time with Saturn entering into that Aries vortex where it's going to be really checked. It's going to be, okay, what's going on here? Is it legal? What's the structure? Let's get accountability. Okay, what do we want to give form to? What's good that's been happening? What's destructive that's been happening? Are these the values we want to carry forward? And we're in this certainly through through 2028. This is taking place, and we're at this year in 2025, especially mid-year, we're reaching this powerful decision point time, turning point. What's going to happen with the tariffs? What's going to happen with the shape of all the departments in the government? So we want to watch, like, where are the decisions being made now about what's going to be going forward to create this new period of time. And the United States is really working to look at this collective, this collective of all the people in the United States. looking at what our various values are. How can we be inclusive and yet still feel like we're in tune with our values? How can we go beyond polarization into some kind of holding integration? Is it possible? Because the United States, is building a new foundation for itself. So I hope that sums up for the collective a bit. And for the personal, what I would say is, check out where Pluto is transiting in your chart. Check out where Uranus is transiting. Check out where Saturn's transiting. Because, our deeper awareness of our own conditioned patterning and our own awareness of that, where we can make choices to liberate ourselves into being more in tune with our authentic self, is going to support, like a wave moving through the collective, is going to support the transformation in the United States. So, it may be that you pick one thing that's really important to you and take a stand for it. But also, in my life, what's happening? How do I feel about myself? If I'm not feeling good about myself, what's going on? That's old programming. So we want to work with these energies on a personal level as well. Any questions around that? Okay, do you guys want to see Donald Trump's chart, or are you just so sick of hearing about him? So unmute yourself and say yes or no.
Yes.
Yes.
Sure.
Yes.
Because he's the catalyst for this major change on the planet. And the sooner that change happens, we can get on with, our empowering ourselves to make a difference.
I'm going to go look at his chart. Okay, so the inner circle is Donald Trump's chart. He's definitely an important person in regards to our country. He's playing a really important role. And why do I say that? Because, his North Node is conjunct his Sun and Uranus up in the house of public standing. He's meant to get out there and really stir things up to, I think, to bring out these hidden pieces as well. And you can see right now he's got Jupiter on his Sun. So, everybody wants Jupiter on your Sun. That's like, we're supporting you. Hey, you're getting really rich right now off the presidency. Your sons are getting rich. You're going to be so rich, like when he says, America's going to get so rich. He's really talking about himself because he's making a lot of money off of being president. But he doesn't want to knock off the tariffs on the baby strollers. So just to let you know about that. So it's very interesting. And so he might be going through a period where there's a certain amount of support that continues for him, or even protection. But these are the other transits that are happening. And I'd say this Jupiter transit, this is going to move on from his Sun in a couple days, but then it's going to be on his Mercury, and it'll be on his Saturn-Venus conjunction, which will happen when Jupiter goes retrograde at the end of this year. Now, this Venus-Saturn conjunction, I've thought about that. This could be his, values that are based in the past, whether you think of how he's decorated the what do you call it? The main room in the White House. I forget the name of it. Somebody can tell me what.
Oval Office.
Yeah, the Oval Office, in all the gold and everything. Kind of going back to Louis the 14th or whatever, or also his traditional values of beauty and women, etc. His challenge in relationship, his great need to feel emotionally connected. He got this charm element, but also then being abrupt and being hard in relationship, feeling separated. Anyway, this Jupiter's transiting here. And but what we have going on is that Uranus right now at the top of his chart, so this is really stirring, he's out there stirring things up, is squaring his Mars and his ascendant. And so that is basically a warning to him. Like if you went to an astrologer, the astrologer would say, you've got to really watch impulsive movements, really quick movements, because they're going to get you in trouble. There'll be something that comes up unexpectedly around the actions you're taking, and you want to be really thoughtful. And this is an impulsive, I'm doing it right now, this is the way it is kind of thing, but it has a tension that's challenging, that he has to slow down and have a new relationship with how he takes action. The other interesting thing I think is that this transiting Saturn in his eighth house of, this is the house of transformation and depth and how he relates on a feeling level with others. He's really getting a check with this. This is also other people's money. That's an interesting, God, he's getting so much money from other people. But, these are two very different influences. But this is a quincunx to his Mars. And it means there's this certain pressure to make adjustments, because that transiting Saturn represents structure and discipline and responsibility, and it'll delay things because it's shooting for long-term growth. And as Mars is in Leo with his Leo ascendant, which is very proud and fiery and assertive and going for it. And he's very identified with that as himself because it's on his ascendant. And then the quincunx, this 150 degrees, says that there's tension. There's this, it's not working. He's got to make an adjustment. And it can be confrontational because there's a misalignment. It's like the universe or the solar system is saying, "Hey, this has to be adjusted. It's way out, way too far out." So it can frustrate his drive and put a brake on what he's doing, and it can affect his sense of self as well, and also his health and his physical energy, because Mars is his blood and his vitality, and Saturn saying, if you don't make an adjustment, it's going to affect your health. And it's asking him to really look at what goals is he pursuing. It's like this mature statesman has come in. I don't know who that is, but has come in and said, you're being too impulsive. Um, you've got to rein in how you're being assertive and aggressive, and really look at what your goals are and your intentions at this point. So it's a growth opportunity for him as well. Now, next year, this Saturn is going to go up to 14. So Saturn will be 14 Aries. It's going to square his Mercury, oppose his Neptune and his Chiron. So next year, he's getting, a lot of times when this Saturn Neptune happens, there can be disappointment. He's being checked in what he says, and also whatever his wounding is with others, that's coming up to the forefront. So, are there any questions? Because I'm coming to the end of our talk.
I have a question. So,
Yes, Hina.
is there any indication about his mental capacity? He seems to be losing it more and incoherent, and that seems to be a weak spot. Is there anything
Yeah,
about that?
yeah. One thing I think, he's not getting enough sleep is one thing. But next year, when Saturn squares his Mercury, that could be a real sign that his mental capacity, something's going on. He's slowing down. I couldn't say, you know, it's dementia. I couldn't say that, but it can be like something's happening in terms of his thinking processes. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay. What's next? Okay. So at this time, we're definitely in the rapids. And it's like this is a time period where bold visions of who we can be and of our evolution development are calling us into the new era. And, we haven't talked very much about the Democratic Party, but they're really in this change. I mean, they're in this liminal space to define in a new way what they're really about as well. And let's see here. I love this quote. I've shared it with you all before. And I love this visual because we're trying to break through to a broader way of understanding ourselves on this planet Earth and how everything's interconnected. We've been looking, I mean, just think how long they've been looking at this illustration. This seems like the collective soul journey that all of us are on, the collective is on. How do we break through to broader understanding of who we really are? So the quote is, we are embedded in the larger life of the collective psyche on a collective journey of transformation. All of us are contributing and participating in this evolution, this spiritual journey, in the soul of the universe within which our lives unfold. We are endlessly learning, dying, and being reborn. And each rebirth expands our view of who we are. We want to remember that. So here we are together. Are there any questions before I close today? We have a little time for discussion. I'm going to stop the share.
And a poem from me.
Pardon?
And a poem from me.
Oh, thank you, Suzanne. We want a poem from you. I'm sure it'll be just perfect.
Actually, it is. I just was surprised I found this. So you want it now, or are there any other questions first?
Well, let's ask if anybody has any questions, whether it's a personal question on your own chart or whether it's a bigger question or any feedback, how does it feel to hear about this astrology?
I feel very encouraged.
Who is that?
Carol Beatty.
Oh, Carol, good. Wow, that's a big one.
That's a big one for me.
Yeah.
It's a big one for me. I've been having a really hard time with what's going on.
What do you think activated that encouragement?
Some of the things that you were explaining that's going to be coming up
in
the future gives me hope.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so glad to hear that, Carol.
Yeah. I'm glad to feel it.
Yeah. And we hold that, we hold that, this picture of what's going on. Anybody else want to comment?
I think it's interesting you were talking about the Democratic Party and this new young guy who's coming up and really taking hold and, being kind of mentored by some of the older statesmen a little bit, but trying to head the party in a new direction. Or maybe not.
Who are you speaking about, Penny?
I can't think of his name.
Oh dear.
Yeah, but I've seen him.
Could it be David Hogue or Maxwell Frost?
David Hogue. I think. I'm pretty sure that's who I'm thinking.
He's the young kid. He's young.
He's very young, but he seems to be really pretty masterful in taking hold of things.
Was
And
he one of the students at the park? What is it? The
Parkland. Yeah.
Parkland
I,
shooting?
I think so. I think that's
Yeah.
where it came up
Yeah.
from.
Yeah. Well, thank you for bringing that up.
Sue,
Yeah.
does Project 20, what is it, 25 or 26? What is it called? 25?
Yep.
Does it have a chart? Can
Good
it?
question. What we could do, I'm going to write that down.
Because
Is
they're
look,
hell bent on making that happen, and it's unfolding right before us
yeah,
rapidly.
it is. What we could do is we could look at when they first published it. I'd have to do some research, but it would be when it was first published. And it might be, when it went public as well. That's what we'd look for. So if you get that information, let me know and I'll see what I can find. That's the way we would look at that chart.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. But I think, Kathy, should we tell people about that movie, Bad Faith?
Well, I think it's really informative.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
a movie on Netflix, I believe. I think it's Netflix called Bad Faith that gives the history and the rise of the Christian nationalists, um, and and their part in getting Trump into office. That is, I think, important for us to understand what their values are. Anybody else have anything or a personal question in terms of the timing before Suzanne reads her poem?
Um, I just want to say that there's quite a number of young people coming up. There's AOC, Frost, and more than I can name.
Mm-hmm.
And the Indivisibles folks are young, and so there's a lot on the horizon that's really moving forward in
Yeah.
terms
Good to
of the
hear.
values that we enjoy.
Mm-hmm. It makes me think of how can we get out of polarity? I just think that's such food for thought.
Well, it's interesting, Sue. What I see is this hatred that's happening is bringing people together.
Oh, yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, people that are marching now, they're blue, they're red, they're this, they're that, they're big, they're fat, they're
Mm-hmm.
black, they're green, they're everything. And there's some kind of homogenization that's happening in the human soul of America. Of course, everyone they're threatening our money and our existence, really, but um
The earth.
the
Well,
earth.
and I see it as an opportunity for growth because as soon as we learn to get off ourselves and we become bigger for something other than ourselves, we're then able to change the world. And it all begins within us. And I'm seeing this huge paradigm shift going on where we're really becoming aware of what our inner talents are, because that's where the gold is, that's where the wealth is. And in following dollar conversations and economic conversations and banking and that sort of thing, and people are saying buy gold, buy silver. Well, it's almost like chasing the grail, and really the grail is within us. And when we find that wealth, that inner wealth, our inner talents, and what I love that Sue shared a while back and I share with people is that we're born with transformational opportunities and we're born with assets. And when we really get to monetize those assets, that's where we're going to find wealth. It's like Deepak Chopra saying in the Seven Laws of Success that Dharma is the spark of affluence that happens when we do what we love.
Mm-hmm. It's beautiful. Yeah, I did want to say to Kathy that what you're describing, you said that hate is bringing them together. Now, that's Mars. people's Mars are getting activated. But I do wonder, in order to get to the next stage, that's why astrology is so helpful, because it's saying we have to accept where we are, but not stop us from taking action for what we stand for and what is deeply valuable to us, but to realize we're in this big soup together, and there's all these different levels going on. And, at the beginning of the class today, I was saying that I was walking the dog, and the two women I was walking the dog with, who I walk with them quite a bit. And I told them what I was going to do, and there's complete silence, like, we don't believe in astrology, and even that I could feel the polarization of kind of, you feel it, like you're really stupid. You think there's astrology, and one was a teacher. Well, they were both teachers. So they were identified with how intelligent they are in terms of what their roles are. But it was a complete, like blanket, like as if I didn't exist. And so there's another polarity, and we can watch like astrology's really coming in. I mean, the young people are into it. Some are into it in a way that's really educative. Some it's a little bit more typey, but this feeling somehow hold, we've got to move into more holding all these levels together, yet still rising. Does anybody have a comment on that? Or maybe that takes Suzanne into her poem.
Yeah, this all does actually.
Okay. Well, it's time to end. So, gosh, thank you, everyone. And Suzanne, you want to go ahead and share your poem?
I will. And thank you, Sue. It was a great class. It really was. It inspired me as well. Hearts are tempered in life in ways we have no way of knowing. Pain and sorrow deepens compassion, which surely is growing within the soul of humanity. Slowly, as one by one we recognize in these times we're in, there is no way to run. Wherever we stand, there is someone who needs a helping hand. While equality and freedom is something we must demand. Microcosm or macrocosm, the lens that we look through develops our perspective as it changes our point of view. Every act of kindness we extend and in return receive. In these times so filled with sorrow, where so many souls must grieve the loss of loved ones, the freedom, the unity that we need to live on this alien planet, we must find a way to feed the soul that we each have carried since the moment of our birth, and extend deep gratitude and compassion to our Mother Earth.
Beautiful, Suzanne.
Thank you, Suzanne.
What are you looking at, my dear?
A red-tailed hawk has been just circling over my head.
Oh.
It's amazing. Yeah, very sweet.
That was great.
Thank you, Suzanne.
Thank you, Sue. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was a great
It's
class.
always inspiring.